much for that, Alfie. You know, we're going to do a little bit of Facebook Live while we record our interview. And I want you to talk about the significance of this room that we're playing in right now.
Okay, well we're in the Philadelphia Clef Club of Jazz and Performing Arts. When this building was built from the ground up, initially this was, it was a gift shop, you know. Now it's like a multi-purpose room, you know, I would say. I would take liberty to say that. And, you know, there's been receptions here, there's been like sometimes caterers, you know, for events taking place in the auditorium. You know, it's a wonderful place. It's an outlet for, it's a great institution for young and old to learn about the music, the culture, and the greatness of the legacy of the luminaries whose shoulders we're standing on.
You know, you explained to me earlier about the significance of this building as it relates to the Musicians Union. And I want you to talk a little bit about the Musicians Union here in Philadelphia.
Okay, well, I was blessed to become a member back in the 50s. The guy gave me my first gig, his name was Nate Murray, and he took me down to 274, which is a local union, which is down the street from here. It was near Broad and Carpenter. And the day I joined the union, Nate and I went down there, and Jimmy Smith was there. 274 musicians in different various types of music. In fact, my father, I'm not sure if he was a member of that union, but he was a member of the Philadelphia Concert Orchestra, which was a black symphony orchestra. And some of the members of the Clef Club have been members of the Philadelphia Concert Orchestra.
Yeah.
It was a black, it existed from the 1930s to the 1960s.
Yeah. So tell me about your earliest experience playing an instrument. Was piano your very first instrument?
It was my first instrument, you know. Then also, you know, we used to play a water hose. I played like the rubber shower joints.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
And you know. Scrub boards, which I try to make the wash tub bass and
exactly.
And you know, we banged on stuff and you know.
Yeah. Now, growing up in Philadelphia, tell me a little bit about the stories when people talk about walking the bar. I know that's something that's very Philadelphia-based. And tell me a little bit about some stories about walking the bar.
Well, I mean, a lot of musicians, so I've been told, had walked the bar in order to, you know, not only be a musician, you have to be an entertainer. So
Right.
that's part of entertainment during that time. John Coltrane did that. Lynn Hope was really known for that. Lynn Hope was a musician who was the first, as far as to my understanding, he was the first African American, North American black to make the Hajj in Mecca.
Yeah.
Back in the 40s, you know, and he would wear a turban on his head. He played tenor sax. He would play at the Showboat Theater abroad in Lumber, a few blocks from here, and big crowds around the corner to get in there to see him, you know.
Yeah.
Black and white, you know, as well, you know.
Yeah. So now coming up, when was your very first paid gig?
When I worked with Nate Murray, I think I played at a place called the Gaiety Cafe, which was on, I think it might be May Street in Lancaster, right near 47th, 46, around that way.
Yeah.
You know, a bar. And the bar had a piano in it, and the piano had like some of the keys where you could see cigarette burns in the keys. Seemed like, I don't know, people that spilled drinks in the body, inside the works of the piano, what have you. But it was like, you know, you could mess your hands up playing on some of the raggedy pianos, but it was, I didn't have to carry anything. But then worked with Nate. We used to do gigs where, like, we say we'd be working, like Nate and Carl and Earl Grubbs and us. We work, say, like the Sportsman Lounge at 60th and Market. Right. And we'd be there for like a month. So we would rent a piano from Cunningham Piano Company. They would bring a piano in. Yeah. You know, for that month, you know. And sometimes it wouldn't, a lot of people would come sit in with us, and the piano wouldn't hold up. It would be, get messed up. People banging on the piano and stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned Earl and Carl Grubbs, and I want you to tell the folks that are on Facebook Live who Earl and Carl Grubbs were.
Okay, well, Earl Grubbs Jr. and Carl Grubbs, Earl is he's no longer with us, but Carl is with us. And their father, Earl Grubbs Sr., had a sister. His sister's name was Naima Grubbs. And Naima Grubbs was John Coltrane's first wife. And Earl and Carl, they lived in North Philly, grew up in North Philadelphia on Thompson Street, and not far from the Coltrane house. And they used to go visit their Uncle Johnny in Philadelphia, and also at the Coltrane house up in New York, wherever Coltrane was living at that time. I'm not exactly sure where he was.
Yes, I understand.
But they would go and visit their Uncle Johnny, and he took a liking to them, and he shared music with them, and they would come and show us their contemporaries, stuff like Giant Steps, of course, the Giant Steps.
Yeah.
Like Sonny, different songs. And so one day, Earl and Carl, I was over at the house, they said, Uncle Johnny's going to be over at the house on 33rd Street. Would you like to go? And I said, yeah. So we went over there and met Train, I met his mother, and that's when I first met him. But I had seen him, I saw him when the album was out, Kind of Blue. I saw that band,
Yeah.
And I saw him one time, like, when Milestones was out, because Train recorded on that too.
Yeah.
I saw that band too, in concert.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I want you to play something that you would have had learned from the Grubbs.
Okay.
A lot of what John Coltrane had played. And tell me the significance of what you just played there.
Well, the first piece was like Giant Steps. I played it in 3-4 times, 6-8 times. Little, like to experiment with music.
Exactly.
The second piece was Cousin Mary.
Cousin Mary, exactly.
Cousin Mary.
Exactly.
Cousin Mary. Love the cousin John Coltrane, something like that.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote this lyrics. I don't know if it's Oscar Brown Jr. or who wrote it.
Yeah. So now, tell me the significance of those chords for you in your career. How did that work into your playing?
Well, I mean, I've been blessed to play different genres of music, and including the sound of Philadelphia R&B music.
Yeah.
And there's a piece called Stop to Start.
Yeah.
Blue Magic.
Yeah.
Central Park West.
Right,
You know?
right.
You can hear the similarity in there.
Yeah, and I think it would be significant to say that a lot of what John Coltrane played crossed over into R&B, into rock, and so his significance is not only in jazz, and I think you illustrated it very well. Give me another example how some of the John Coltrane chords and some of his melodies crossed over into other genres.
Okay, let's see here. Some of the chord changes in that song could be "I'm Falling in Love," written by Melvin Mervyn Steels, recorded on the Spinners. Have Coltrane changes, and honestly, Central Park West chord changes, similar type chord change movement.
So now you played with some great jazz musicians here in Philadelphia, and I want you to tell me a little bit about those experiences.
Well, I was blessed to work with Hank Mobley, Jimmy Merritt, worked with Rufus Harley, Byard Lancaster, Jalil Shaw, Daoud El-Bakara, Jonathan Blake, Rufus Harley, son Messiah, and so many people.
Yeah. And Philadelphia is a place, the home of so many great musicians. But I want you to move forward a little bit and tell me about your experience with, let's say, Billy Paul and Norman Connors. What was the music scene like when you guys were growing up here in Philadelphia as young men?
Well, first, I would start out by saying that this hat that I'm wearing right here, this was one of Billy Paul's hats.
Yeah.
His wife, Blanche, after his passing on, she called me one day. She said she got some hats with Billy's, and she said, she said Billy would want somebody who would appreciate him.
Yeah.
And she called me, and I'm blessed. I'm grateful.
Yeah, I understand that.
So Billy and Norman Connors and myself and other musicians, Robert Kenyatta and Gerald Roberts, we all used to hang down at a place called Rittenhouse Square, which was Philadelphia's counterpoint to Washington Square in the Greenwich Village in New York. And where, the so-called beatniks and the nonconformists and all the kind of stuff. We participated in some of that kind of movement and the black arts movement, the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, all that.
Yeah. So now how did you fit in terms of music style? What kind of stuff were you playing at that time?
During that time, well, Norman and myself and others, Alan Nelson, we were fans of and disciples of the John Coltrane experience.
Yeah.
So we tried to play, and Earl and Carl Grubbs, we played a lot of Coltrane type music. We dug Bird, we dug Monk, we dug Sonny Rollins,
Yeah, and because the dexterity, if you will, of a lot of the Philadelphia musicians. You know, you're playing at this club, this real eclectic place in Philadelphia, and then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, Billy Paul has this hit record, Me and Mrs. Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and then soon thereafter, Norman Connors has a huge hit, You Are My Starship,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going in different directions. And so, what was on your mind at that time?
Well, I was like kind of like stunned because we were staunch so-called straight-ahead jazz
Yeah.
players and singers and what have you. And then I started thinking like, if they getting into this and there must be something to this. So I started studying some of this stuff, and I self-taught myself from listening to the Mighty Love album, Spinners.
The Spinners, right?
Blue Magic's first album. And, Love is the Magic. Love is the message.
Philadelphia Sound.
MFSB.
There you go.
So I self-taught myself some stuff. And,
When you say you taught yourself some stuff, give me an idea of the stuff you were working on musically. Give me an indication on the piano, some of the things you were working on.
Well, Mighty Love, I had to learn how by ear. Pick it up, not, you know, like. Love Nobody.
So now you're capturing some of the music from the iconic R&B groups, and now where is your career moving at this juncture?
Well, I started to listen to this music and start reading album liner notes. I read about Sigma Sound Studios in Philadelphia, and Joe Tarzier, the owner, Kenny Gamble. But I had played a gig with Kenny Gamble and the Romeos back in the 60s. When I was a straight-ahead jazz player. A friend of mine named Dollar Mosley, a bass player, he got me the gig, you know, recommended I play with, you know, the Romeos. And I did a gig. I didn't want none of my friends to know I was playing that kind of music. So I did the gig, and I kind of like forgot about it. But I remember one guy, Winnie Wilford, who was the bass player. And because I remember seeing him before, I saw his picture on, he was like the main model for Afro Sheen products, hair products, you know, hair products. So years later, and his first wife was Debbie Allen. And then Winnie became the one of the executives with the Black Music Division of CBS Records in New York. And one time we did when I was working with Ted Pendergrass. CBS threw a big weekend with all their artists, you know, in different divisions of music in London. And Winnie was the person who coordinated to make sure we had, you know, the lodging and the ground transportation, air transportation, food, everything, you know. And so we remembered each other from back during that time. So you know, remained friends. And in fact, he and I and a guy named Nicky Blue. Nicky is an Italian guy who grew up in South Philly, and he used to dance on bandstand. You know?
Well, bandstand is originated.
And he hung out with black folk, you know. And so Nicky and Winnie and I we went to Teddy Pendergrass's funeral together.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But I don't want you. I'm trying to build up to your time with Pendergrass.
Teddy?
Because I want to go back to the point where you were still hanging out with Billy Paul and Norman Connors.
Okay.
Before they became these iconic R&B artists. Well, I guess, with Norman Connors, who was sort of like a smooth jazz kind of, that was the format that would play a lot of his music. Like in New York, there was a radio station, WRVR, that would play a lot of Norman Connors stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So at that juncture of your career, what were you thinking? Because you had mentioned earlier that you went and played the R&B gig. You didn't want anybody to know that, and which I could understand.
Mm-hmm.
But now your road partners, they're like these iconic stars now.
Mm-hmm.
So where were you at that juncture before you went to Teddy Pendergrass?
Okay.
Because I want to build up to that point.
Okay. Well, at that time, I was active in the Nation of Islam, and I
Right.
stopped playing music.
Yeah.
Totally stopped playing music. My friend Byron Lancaster, he went into the Nation for a second, and then encouraged me to, try it out. I went and I stopped playing music. Then I started hearing Billy Paul and them stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a piano, and so I started learning some of this stuff, and it inspired me to go down to Sigma Sounds.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Went down there, I met Larry Washington, the percussionist for MFSB, and he said, it's just myself, he said, what do you do? I said, I play piano, He said, well, play me something. So he took me to Studio B at Sigma Sound, and I played him a medley of Philly type stuff.
Yeah, give me an example of what you played that day.
If I can recall. Good things don't last forever.
Right.
Best I could do over.
No, I understand. Now give me an idea of what year.
That's one of the pieces. This was in 1974.
1974.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So, so he said, my cousin's name is Major Harrison. They're going to make a big star of him.
Absolutely.
The company is with because they already had
Yeah.
success with Blue Magic on Gold and Platinum.
That's right.
So he was the next, artist in line.
Yeah,
So-
Love Won't Let Me Wait
Right.
was the tune.
So we, he said, Major's gonna need a band. So he hooked me up with the audition. I, passed the audition. And,
Yeah. So now, tell me about the very first meeting you had with Teddy Pendergrass before you guys went on the road.
Well, I used to see him at the discos. I used to go to a place called Roses. I used to go to a place called Cyrano's. The Hippopotamus, which became Kim Graves, and used to see him coming there, people coming there dancing. He'd come in with his entourage, big fur coats and all kind of stuff.
Yeah. Before he was the Teddy Pendergrass that we know, he was actually a drummer.
Right.
And did you know him during that portion of his career?
No, I didn't. I knew him when he was with Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes.
Yeah.
As a lead singer. But
Right.
He was a lead singer, but he wasn't known as the lead singer by his name.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a whole nother story that we won't get into that today. But one day we'll hopefully maybe we'll get into that story. But I want to focus on you today. So now you're at the first rehearsal with Teddy Pendergrass. Now, did you write any charts at all for the group?
No.
Okay.
No. So stuff was when I got with Teddy. Teddy had been with Harold Melvin and
Right.
Grubbs, and Michael Sugarbear Foreman, the bass player, we worked together with Major Harris, and then we worked together with. He got me the gig with Barbara Mason and the Futures. I did that tour. Then he got me the gig back with Billy Paul, and from there, he was telling me about this guy. They call him Rugg. Harold Melvin called him Rugg. Teddy Pendergrass was his name.
Yeah.
So he said at some point Teddy's is going to leave Harold and go on his solo, you know, because he has it like that. I mean, his career and his gift, you know, strong enough for solo.
Absolutely.
So he went. Sugar Bear called me one day. He told me that Teddy left Harold, and some of the Blue Notes might be leaving with him, and they need a band. Would I be interested? So I went and the audition with just a band.
Yeah.
Musicians, and so Sugar Bear was handling all that. So we rehearsed for a week. That weekend we was out. We did 3 dates. We did like Kansas City, Wichita, Kansas, and I think Muskegon, Michigan. And by the time it was like three nights, I think 2 of the Blue Notes joined us at that time. And then the next weekend we went out. It was 3: Bernie, Wilson, Larry Brown, and Lloyd Parks were with us. So we toured as the Blue Notes. Teddy Pendergrass and the Blue Notes.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so we were doing all the Blue Notes regular stuff before Teddy's solo stuff.
Yeah.
Before he got his deal with Kenny Gamble.
Right.
As a solo artist.
Now you remained with Teddy Pendergrass when he went with Philadelphia International Music. You were still with Teddy Pendergrass at that time.
Well, I wasn't at that time. I was in some of the bands, Sam Reed, a drummer James Carter. We were living in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
Because some people approached us about, because when we were we worked with Teddy, and then Teddy got his deal apparently to do solo.
Right.
So he said he's not touring no more.
Right.
So, but we needed to work, and the Blue Notes wanted to work in the band, so we needed the money. So
exactly. No, I understand.
Toured with them. They had another lead singer taking Teddy's place, you know, that position. And we worked with them, and while we were touring, David Cruz, a percussionist, who became a percussionist for MFSB after Larry Washington, and plus he grew up with the Delphonics. He was their percussionist, you know. So anyway, him and somebody else were talking to some people when we went to Kansas City one time. They wanted to start a new music maker there, so they invited us to move there, relocate. So we moved there.
Right.
Basically, most of Teddy's band.
Yeah.
We were there for several months, and we were working at a club there called Harlow's, and we were trying to develop a music scene, and new artists went there, and you know, looking at recording, but. It was just for a seasonal thing.
No, I understand.
It fell apart, and so we left Kansas City, and my writing partner at the time, Tom Wallington, Jamil, he came and we wrote a song about Kansas City. We're packing up, leaving Philly town, going to create a brand new sound in Kansas City bound. So he came here on his trip too. So we came back. Jamil went back to writing with Philly International as a writer, and Sam Reed and James Carter, the drummer, and myself were the only people from the old band that he hired us back. So we were with him during the Philly International days.
So now, due to your relationship with Teddy Pendergrass, you earned a double platinum record. And I thought that was a tremendous accomplishment for you, Alfie.
Well, actually, we earned a platinum album.
Yeah.
You know, but Teddy went. He had 5 consecutive platinum albums.
Exactly.
During his
right.
His
and you
heyday.
were the recipient of one of them.
One of them, right? Teddy Live Coast to Coast, which was recorded up the street here in Philadelphia at the Greek Theater. At the Schubert Theater, which is now called the Merriam, and the Greek Theater in LA. Was sessions from both of those, and then plus it was like studio sessions too.
Yeah. So now, Alfie, what are you doing now?
I'm doing songwriting, teaching students, doing music production. I produce music, I use a computer-based program called Logic Pro, and do orchestration, do sessions, do tracks, and in fact, I was blessed a few years ago to have gained a student, Russell Tompkins Jr., to lead singer of Stylistics.
What I'd like for you to do is play something on our way out.
Okay.
Alfie, I want to say, man, thank you so very much for bringing me down to Philadelphia so I can have an opportunity to speak with you. It's been such a wonderful pleasure knowing you and hanging out with you. I remember when we first met at St. Mark's Church in New York. Mm-hmm. It was a play.
Mark Vesey.
Mark Vesey play.
One of the guys I grew up with.
Yeah.
Walter Robinson wrote the play.
Yeah.
In fact, Walter used to play in the band with Earl and Carl Grubbs as well. When we were, in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm so glad that we stayed in touch all these years, and it's such a pleasure being here in Philadelphia with you. And Alfie, I want to say thank you so very much for your time. I enjoy being with you. I enjoy hearing you play. I enjoy hearing the stories. And you are truly a legend here in Philadelphia, and it's a God-given pleasure to know you, brother.
It's my pleasure.